Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning, because I guess when we release this, it will be Monday morning, and the school choice debate will be done, so we should probably have an idea of how that went. But good morning. This is the BCM Podcast with your hosts, Charles Blain, Michael Searle, or M. Searle ATX, as he often goes by, and Brad Swail. How are you guys doing?
I've never called him Michael. I've only ever said M. Searle ATX.
We're really going to test our crystal ball skills here today. And I don't mean crystal ball from Breaking Points. I mean, can we predict the future?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. End of show. We're done.
That's it. I
can tell you what the prediction is. We can do it.
Well, how are you guys? Anything new since last week? Any updates? Crazy things happening in Austin?
No.
I watched U.S. soccer beat Trinidad and Tobago last night 3-0.
How bad did they whoop them? 3-0? That's
it should have been 10. It should have been 10. They had so many opportunities. Red carded. Guy got red carded in the 20th minute, so they're down one player, and they had 15 good opportunities. Three of which they.
Come on, US.
Yale had a good soccer game.
What?
Okay, well, never mind.
Yale.
Anyway.
No, I'm not saying stop your story. I've never heard of Yale and soccer and this, but that's fine. What happened? Who did they play?
It wasn't Brown. Who was it? I can't remember who they played, but this guy Mark Rogers had this sick kick from halfway across the field. The goalie, Mark Rogers was so across the field, the goalie thought there was just no chance that he would even try to kick it and that he was going to run it to the goal. So he's out of the goal. The kid takes his foot, the most amazing, impeccable foot-eye coordination I've ever seen, and lands it, and they win the game.
You've never seen me play soccer, but that's okay.
Or M. Searle ATX.
Well, you can give us more updates about Ivy League soccer every show. I actually am genuinely interested, but
that'll be my shtick.
Backgrounds, you have Ivy League soccer. All right, do y'all want to get started? Do we explain the show?
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking, mostly legislatively. We got a really cool guest who we will be introducing shortly. So we're going to be covering things from special session to school choice, primaries. I missed one, I think.
Will Texas
turn blue?
Will Texas turn blue? The question the Democrats ask every single year. So yes, we've got a lot to talk about. So why don't we just go ahead and transition to our guest, and we got a little montage of his highlights that we like to play as he comes into the conversation.
Patrick Svitek.
Patrick Svitek of the Texas Tribune. I think most folks will be pretty familiar with his work.
Patrick Svitek is in for Ross Ramsey this morning, one of the top political reporters at the Texas.
Paxton's impeachment. I know that you guys had a busy week in Washington, but here in Austin we saw the continued fallout from. I've seen you tweet a little bit about Congressman Allred, his crowd size at his events. Are you taking them more seriously this time?
Patrick, can you talk a little bit about Abbott's evolution on school vouchers? He is pitching himself as the ultimate voucher advocate. Has that always been the case?
No, it's not always been the case in terms of the intensity of his support for this proposal. He had a number of chapters or questions to get answered before we could even see if there's going to be a floor vote. Is there going to be a quorum on Friday? What are going to be the points of order? What are going to be the amendments?
All right. Patrick Svitek, welcome to the show. He's political correspondent for the Texas Tribune. Do you go by Patrick?
I do go by Patrick.
Pat Svitek. Can I call you Svitek?
You can call me whatever you'd like. That's fine. Yeah, Svitek and Patrick are preferred.
I think it's a great last name. It's one of those last names that people just say Svitek automatically. And I think it rolls off the tongue well. So I don't want to offend. Some people don't like it. So that's good to know. Patrick.
No, it's fine. Go for it.
Sweet.
You got permission.
I've got permission. That's all I needed. I think, Charles, you're starting us off with the first topic. Is that right?
No, I think that's Michael, right?
Michael is.
Well, first, I think, hey, Patrick, you want to just give our listeners just a little background on you and what you focus on? Just give us a little history of Patrick.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been writing about Texas politics since 2014 when I got out of college and came right to Austin and initially worked for the Austin Bureau of the Houston Chronicle. And then about 9 months into that, the Texas Tribune hired me away, and I've been with them ever since and have come to cover really just all things political for them. So That includes the Texas legislature, Texas congressional delegation, statewide leadership, the governor's office, and then of course, elections at multiple levels, from mayor's races, all the way up to the presidential election inside Texas, and then if Texas run for president, it's been a really fun and wild ride.
I'll just add, Patrick used to tweet about hip hop as well. There would be kind of rap references. I haven't seen those in a couple of years, unfortunately, but I do remember the days of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
sorry, Patrick, go ahead.
Oh, might be breaking up a little bit.
He's doing a remix. You talked about rap, and now he's doing remixes.
Patrick, can you hear us? Oh, there you go.
Yep. Yeah, I can hear you guys. I'm sorry.
Okay, there we go. Michael, it's all on you.
Okay. Yeah. So the timely discussion here. Patrick is the expert there at the Texas Tribune, and the Texas House is on the floor now, I think, to vote on the school issue, the school choice issue, as well as increased teacher pay and funding for school districts. This has been a huge priority for Governor Abbott. We've got a video of him talking. I think it was in Houston before the special session. Charles, if you want to run that and then get Patrick's take on what's going to happen today or how Governor Abbott's doing.
Yeah, let's see.
Is to make sure we get across the finish line a piece of legislation that will return mom and dad to being in charge of their child's education in the great state of Texas.
So Patrick, how is he doing?
Well, today is a pivotal day, as you pointed out. This proposal is on the Texas House floor as we speak. And, it is a very unique moment because usually when a proposal that is this high priority of at least one of the state leaders is on the House floor, it's all kind of choreographed and pre-planned, and where the votes are, and whether it's going to pass or fail. And I think going into this floor debate, that is unusually not the case. There is real uncertainty whether the House has the votes to pass this. The feeling I've gotten from my sources as of this hour is pessimism that it's going to pass, or that it's going to pass with the very essential school voucher component to it. There's a lot of anticipation that there's going to be an amendment that is going to be proposed to strip out that part of the bill. And like I said, the vibe that I'm getting as of this hour is that amendment's going to be proposed. It's going to be successful. And, Abbott has said that he would veto this bill if it doesn't include that provision. So we'll see. Like you guys said earlier, this is going to be a bit of a crystal ball episode.
Yeah. I mean, early in this thing's been kind of a hot potato. Early in this session, or in the last special session, I tweeted wrongly. I get lots of things wrong, that I heard there was a deal. And then it sounded today like it's going to get stripped out, possibly, of the school funding thing. Do you think that this was like a miscalculation of the votes? Is it a miscalculation of Governor Abbott's kind of political power, or is this like the speaker's inability to exercise leverage over a lot of his top lieutenants? I'm thinking Burns, Van Dever, a lot of people who are critical to helping him get the speakership, that he can't really put muscle on, given how supportive they've been of him in the past.
Yeah, a couple thoughts on that. I think Abbott probably underestimated how dug in against this proposal at least some of those rural Republicans are. For them, this is like a number 3, number 2, potentially number 1 issue that they're unwilling to compromise on. And I think going into this, Abbott knew that they were very resistant to this kind of proposal. But, maybe he underestimated just the extent of their resistance and the extent to which it has become so ingrained in their local political identities to be against, any kind of effort to take taxpayer dollars out of public education to redirect them to other forms of education. And so I think if there's a miscalculation on Abbott's part, it's maybe just underestimating the extent of that resistance among some of these rural Republican lawmakers. And then also you mentioned Phelan. I mean, his position in all this has been fascinating. He has always said that he is fine with a floor vote on this, but he knows that in the past, the numbers have not been there for this. And so, I would say he's not been an impediment to this, but he's also not been, as far as I know, whipping votes, trying to ensure a favorable outcome for Abbott in terms of actually getting something passed out of the House. And so if this proposal fails today, his relatively passive attitude toward this proposal, I think is going to be one of the front and center controversies, at least in the political space. Again, he hasn't been an impediment to it, but he also has not been actively, rallying support for it. And that's, I think that's going to get more attention if this proposal fails today.
Yeah.
Can I ask? Yeah. Do you think that Abbott has sort of threatened to, primary people, the rural Republicans that go against it, or any Republican that goes against it? I mean, it doesn't seem like they're too afraid of that. Do you think that's a miscalculation on their part? Do you think Abbott can actually sway voters on this one issue in those rural districts?
Look, I think there are some rural districts where Abbott could move the needle on this issue in a primary. There are others, where I think it's more in doubt. So some of these rural Republicans, take Glenn Rogers in House District 60, for example. They've already been through very high-profile primary challenges where this issue has been on the on the agenda, where it's been an issue where they've been attacked. They know how to deal with this issue. They know, they understand how to deal with this issue in the context of a competitive primary. Now, Abbott hasn't been against them in those primaries, so that would certainly be a new development and a new dynamic in their primaries. But some of these rural Republicans, they feel like they've already been through the political fire on this issue in previous primaries. They're confident in their position. And so I don't think they're necessarily scared of, Abbott being a factor in their primary.
Pat, if I can just ask a question too on that note, because, back in 2018, I worked with Susanna Dockefield's campaign against Sarah Davis, and that was one of the races that Abbott came out to endorse a primary opponent in, and obviously it failed. Do you think that a lot of them are looking at it as they're just not scared of his involvement because, I guess maybe the local school boards and superintendents and folks like that in the rural areas would have more of an impact on the minds of primary voters than Abbott coming down and campaigning against them would?
Well, you do mention, the 2018 cycle is an interesting data point here. He backed, as you pointed out, primary challengers to, I think, 3 House Republicans, Sarah Davis, Wayne Faircloth, and Lyle Larson. And he was only successful in getting one of those incumbents unseated, Wayne Faircloth. And so, to the extent that Abbott has a record on engaging against House Republican incumbents in primaries, people look back at 2018, and obviously that, 1 for 3 is not the most impressive record. But obviously this would be different. It would be premised on one specific policy issue where the incumbent has not only gotten crosswise with Abbott, but if polling is to be believed, they've gotten crosswise with the Republican primary voters in their district. And so I think some of those rural Republicans are looking back at 2018 and saying, well, Abbott wasn't really effective then. How effective can he be in the future? But there are obviously some key differences, I think, between what happened in 2018 and what could happen in this coming primary cycle.
Yeah, it seems like there's kind of the Ernest Bales, Drew Darby, Stan Lampert camp that are just, there's nothing that you could do to earn their votes. Maybe even Van Devers there. I don't know. But does he have any more cards to play? Is there anything that he could do from your vantage point to get, the 12 or 14 votes that he needs on the floor in any amount of time?
I don't think so at this point. I mean, everyone has had the whole year to consider the different finer points of this policy package. to think about what could sweeten the deal, what could change strategically to get their vote. And everyone, I think, has kind of, we'll see today, of course, but it feels like everyone is pretty comfortable with where they're at. And a lot of minds are not going to be changed at this point. Obviously, Abbott has talked about calling even more special sessions for the remainder of the, fall and winter. We'll see if that happens. I'm honestly anticipating that if this proposal fails in the current fourth special session, Abbott, my expectation is Abbott would not call more special sessions and just proceed to go all out in the primary season.
Well, and my question on that is, I would think that if it fails this fourth special session, there's probably a fear there. If the numbers aren't there now, I would assume that the fear grows that if he lets them go home, essentially, the ones who are against it are going to dig their heels in a little more, and then maybe ones who are on the fence might come back not supporting it. Do you think that's a concern at all? And also, if he keeps calling special sessions and it just keeps failing, I guess, what do you see as that? What impact do you see that has on kind of his perception in terms of how much power he has? Because I would assume that if you keep calling special session and you can't get your one policy through, you start to look weaker and weaker and weaker as it goes on.
Yeah, I think this fourth special session was all about getting it to the House floor for a vote at last, which I don't think has happened in recent history. It's almost an historic event, even if it fails, just to have that floor vote. And so I think that was the main goal of the special session for Abbott. But you're right. If we keep getting multiple special sessions, multiple House floor votes, and it's failing, that is, that makes them look weaker and weaker, and it's more embarrassing and more embarrassing. And people just get more, those opponents get more, don't think, falling off the fence one way or another. But the resistant bloc is just going to continue to get more resistant. So, I think from his perspective, politically, his best off ramp at this point is to just make good on his word to make this an issue in the primaries at this point if it fails during the fourth special session.
Interesting. Do you think Cruz plays a role in, not just in this, but also in the primary fight for it? Because I know he came out in support of it. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, there were some tweets. I don't know that he was necessarily threatening primary support. I can't remember. But kind of where does he fall in on all this?
Yeah, I expect him to be very active in these primaries on this issue. And he has been active in state house primaries before based on this issue. He's going to be, I would imagine he will be endorsing, campaigning, maybe even making independent expenditures, through his PACs for, primary challengers to House Republicans who are resistant to this. I expect him, again, he's been active on this issue in primaries before. I expect him to continue to be this cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
Rick Perry's the other. Sorry, Brad. Rick Perry's the other one that's kind of positioning himself to get involved. Yeah, I'm with you, Patrick. I don't see his next move as anything other than, okay, we're taking it to the elections. But there's so many competing interests, and this is kind of a good transition to what Charles brought up. There's so many competing interests with the Paxton endorsements and Defend Texas Liberty and like all this other action that's going to happen in the elections. Is there a scenario where Greg Abbott is working with the Jonathan Stickland crowd and Defend Texas Liberty to take out the same person in a primary?
Yeah, that is a great question. You have multiple competing interests in some ways that are interested in that have a common goal of wanting to take out some of these House Republicans. And it begs the question that you just raised is, are they going to get behind the same candidates and effectively be strange bedfellows? Because I know to Democrats, Greg Abbott and Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilkes are all the same thing. But politically, anyone who knows Republican politics in Texas know that's not the case at all. Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilkes and Defend Texas Liberty were the top funder to Abbott's primary challenger, Don Huffines, in 2022. And if you look at Greg Abbott's, his campaign finance reports, I can't remember the last time he got a significant donation from Tim Dunn or a member of the Wilkes family. And so Abbott is at odds, by all appearances, with the Defend Texas Liberty wing of the party. But if he wants to get serious about getting involved in state house primaries, that may mean at least considering backing the same candidates. And then you have the Ken Paxton angle, which is, beating House incumbents who voted for impeachment. That is, Ken Paxton and Texas Liberty are largely on the same page there. But, just today, for example, you saw Ken Paxton endorse a rural Republican, Travis Clardy, probably just because Travis Clardy was very outspoken against Paxton's impeachment in the House. Clardy has otherwise been, kind of an ideological enemy of the Defend Texas Liberty crowd. And so even there, you're seeing a splintering of some sorts, or at least a perceived splintering between the interests of Paxton and Defend Texas Liberty. And Clardy is also an opponent of school vouchers. And so he's on the wrong side of Abbott. And so that's a primary where you see like all these competing interests, potentially going in different directions or having to make different kinds of choices about who they may want to back or support.
So kind of backing up from the school's choice thing, but just looking at the broad view of the primaries, I guess Paxton has made it clear that he's going to be very involved. And I'd argue, and we've had this conversation around Harris County, various people, that he's much more popular, much stronger now. So how impactful do you think he's going to be in the primaries, and kind of what races are you looking at specifically? Selfishly, because I'm in Harris County, 128, 133, 138 are ones I'm looking at. Mano Diala, Lacey Hall, who welcomed Jared Woodfill as her challenger, who in his announcement said he's not only running for 133, but he's also running for Speaker of the House at the same time. And Briscoe Kane has a challenger as well. So just kind of curious about your overall take on the primaries, Paxton's influence, and maybe what races you're paying close attention to.
Well, in general, whenever you have a big name surrogate going against you, I feel like you're more vulnerable if you're a freshman member, or if you have not been through a competitive primary before, haven't had the chance to kind of flex those political muscles and build that kind of name ID with primary voters. And so when you start looking at the races that, Paxton is getting involved in, I'd probably put a little bit more of an emphasis on the incumbents he's going against who are newer to the legislature or haven't been through competitive races before. And so the race you mentioned there in Houston, I think it's Diallo's race,
right?
That's certainly one to watch. Obviously, he's been involved in politics personally, in the business community for a while, and so it's not like he's a freshman who has like the lowest name ID, but he hasn't necessarily been through this kind of race before, so he's going to have to take it seriously. Andrew Murr, who is the top House Republican on impeachment. He's been around a while, but hasn't really had a super competitive primary. And he obviously had a very central role in the impeachment. And so he's someone I'd keep an eye on as well. David Spiller is also relatively new to the legislature. I think he got here in a special election just 2 or 3 years ago. He was on the House Board of Impeachment Managers. So I think his race, and he represents a very, very conservative district. His race will be one to watch. And so, we'll see. I mean, obviously Paxton is, he's already, we're seeing, making a lot of endorsements. He's not going to win all those races. But, I think that he is, wants to just make it very clear that he is out for revenge, and that he's going to, if there's a semi-credible primary challenger against you and you voted to impeach him, there's a good chance he's going to endorse that primary challenger and at least make your race look a little more competitive than it would have been otherwise.
Since we're talking about Ken Paxton, is he, he's making all these endorsements, making a lot of political moves. He's out for revenge on a lot of this stuff. Do you think that what are his future plans here in Texas? Do you think he stays the attorney general and then just sort of, retires, sets off into the sunset or whatever? Or is he going for a higher office? Do you think there's potential that he might compete for the governorship against Greg Abbott or whoever it may be in the next cycle?
I don't think he's going to be riding off into the sunset after being AG. I think he's clearly interested in higher office. What higher office, though, that is, I think is remains to be seen. He's made the most noise publicly about potentially running for U.S. Senate in 2026 when John Cornyn is up for re-election. He hates Cornyn, has made that very clear publicly. Whether that seat's going to, whether Cornyn's going to run for re-election, and that would be a primary challenge by Paxton, we don't know that yet. But it's also true that we currently have a log jam in non-federal statewide office in Texas, right? So, I mean, the governor could run again, the lieutenant governor could run again, so but they could run again. So we'll see if that log jam breaks in 2026. And that could create new opportunities. For example, if Abbott doesn't run again, then I would imagine running for governor is very appealing to Paxton. So we'll see, but he's clearly interested, I think, in higher office. But given the dynamics in Texas right now, it's a little unclear what those higher offices could be that he could run for.
Yeah. What is it? So, I mean, if he has political aspirations to move upward, right? I would think that the governorship, that's an upward move from attorney general, but would lieutenant governor be an upward move? U.S. senator seems like an upward move. I'm just trying to think about what, if he aspires to be more, what are his options? Is it basically just U.S. senator and governor?
I think at this point that, he would probably consider, governor, clearly an upward move, U.S. Senate, clearly an upward move. Lieutenant governor, I think most people would consider AG to lieutenant governor an upward move. But, if that slot is open, you already have a number of Republican state senators who are probably interested in it. And so Paxton, that could be a crowded race. I don't know if Paxton would necessarily be interested in running for lieutenant governor if it's open. And then another thing I should raise is if Trump is, back in the White House, he could obviously appoint Paxton to a cabinet position. He could appoint him to be the U.S. Attorney General. So I think Paxton has a lot of, potential avenues here, that have him ascending to a higher office or holding some job that's not a state attorney general as soon as, a year and a half from now.
So he's a real rising star in Texas politics, huh?
For the time being, but in Texas politics and in politics, you see how people, one day you're up, one day you're down. After the Paxton trial, Defend Texas Liberty looked like one of the most politically relevant players in a long time in Texas. And then we had this reporting on them hosting Nick Fuentes, the notorious white supremacist. And all of a sudden, Defend Texas Liberty's political stock, plummeted and everyone was piling on them. So, we've already seen, that's just to say, we've already seen this year how in Texas politics, one day you're at the top of the, you're at the top of the world. One day you're quickly falling. So, there's a lot more game to play, it feels like.
So I guess if Paxton runs for governor, Senate, gets appointed to something, do we assume that Tony Busby is going to run for attorney general? Is that the next step?
Well, I think he's got a runoff in his city council race.
Right.
So he's got to get through that. But I think he is. I'll just say he's clearly seems to love politics. I don't know, given how successful he's been, why you'd run for Houston City Council other than you are really interested in getting into politics. And so I will not be surprised if he's talked about for other offices in the future, honestly.
I'm curious about, because on this note, on the Paxton thing, if I'm not mistaken, in that Trib Fest interview you did with Cruz, you kind of pushed him a little bit to see if he would support Paxton if he ran against Cornyn, because him and Cornyn have endorsed each other in the past, but he wouldn't give an answer, right? Or did I not see some extended conversation part of that?
Yeah, Cruz basically said, he would not give an answer. Basically said it's too early, too hypothetical to go after that, or to address that potential scenario. But the reason I did press him on that is because Cruz and Cornyn obviously have a bit of a tense history at times. Cruz memorably would not endorse Cornyn for re-election when Cornyn was facing primary challengers in, I believe it was 2014, really testing my memory here. But then when Cruz was running for re-election in 2018, he kind of buried that hatchet with Cornyn, and they appeared on stage together at the Texas Tribune Festival. I think it was in the fall of 2017, and Cornyn endorsed Cruz for re-election, and made sure that it was clear that they were a united front going into that battle against Beto O'Rourke. And now we're looking at the potential again of Cornyn having primary challengers, and Cruz won't say whether he's going to be backing Cornyn effectively. And so it seems like another piece of track in that political roller coaster the two of them have been on when it comes to supporting one another at election time.
Kind of seems like Ted Cruz is real happy to bury hatchets, for
when it helps him. Yeah. So we'll see.
You can call his wife whatever you want, and then if you win, like he wants you on his side. That's for sure.
He's a political animal. We'll say that.
Yeah, for sure. It's it is what it is. You gotta if you're in it to win it, do what you got to do, I guess. So Ted Cruz, he's got I guess the presumptive Democrat nominee for U.S. Senate is Colin Allred, right? And Charles alluded to it earlier. Every single election cycle that comes up, we hear this. This is the year. This is when it's going to happen. Texas is going to be purple. Texas is going to be blue. We can do it. It's going to be a blue wave all over Texas, and it hasn't really panned out. I think the last statewide elected Democrat was Ann Richards. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. So that was, I remember that in elementary school, and it was such a big deal. And so, I'm curious about what you think about that generally. Is this the actual year that it's going to happen? Or, Ted Cruz, he didn't do that great against Beto, but is Colin Allred, can he pull the same support that Beto did?
Look, I think generally speaking, we're in a place right now in statewide Texas politics where, top of the ticket Republicans need to run real smart and sophisticated campaigns, or they can find themselves in a close race. And, when I say real, smart and sophisticated top of the ticket campaigns, I'm thinking about the campaign that John Cornyn ran for re-election in 2020. I'm thinking about the campaign that Greg Abbott ran for re-election last year in 2022. But if you're a top of the ticket Republican in Texas running statewide, and you take it for granted and you coast, you can find yourself in a close race. I think it was after the 2020 election in Texas that Dave Carney, Greg Abbott's chief political strategist, described Texas as a quote competitive red state. And I think that's a good way to describe it. We are at a point in statewide politics where, I wouldn't describe us as a solidly red state, certainly a Republican state, but a competitive red state in that statewide office holders who are at the top of the ticket have to run, real campaigns with actual sophistication and political dexterity, or they can find themselves, not necessarily they can lose, but they can find themselves in a place where all of a sudden they're only winning by 2 to 4 points or potentially even less than that. So that's how I'd sum up where we're currently at. Cruz obviously in this cycle has a big opportunity to redeem his performance in 2018 against Beto O'Rourke. Obviously nationally 2018 was a good environment for Democrats. Beto O'Rourke benefited from that. He also obviously was a unique talent at the time, kind of coming out of nowhere, being able to raise a lot of money, being, very personable and well received on the campaign trail, willing to go everywhere and talk to everyone. So he had those personal strengths working in his favor, in addition to the environment. But he also had the benefit of Cruz ignoring him for basically the first year of his campaign. I don't know if you guys recall, but Cruz never did anything to criticize Beto until primary night of the election year in March 2018. So Cruz, I think by all accounts, got a pretty late start in defining Beto that year. And so he obviously has an opportunity to redeem that performance this time around, and run, as I said earlier, a real smart, sophisticated campaign to prevent it from becoming as close as it was in 2018.
Yeah. And I, just talking to friends and, I don't know, acquaintances, strangers, whoever I'm talking to about Ted Cruz, even on the, generally conservatives, which I find is sort of fascinating. They say kind of the same thing, and it always alludes to not liking Ted Cruz sort of as he's a great politician, but he's, I don't know, slimy or, whatever. Like, he's just weird. Is he the Zodiac killer? Who knows? Maybe he is. And, I don't know if that's going to hurt him. It's the way that politics, and that's, I feel like maybe that's calming down a little bit over the years as the political divide just becomes more and more apparent between red and blue. Do you think that Cruz, of course, he also went to, where did he go in Mexico?
Cancun.
Cancun, that's right. Cancun Ted.
It's a short flight, so I don't,
Well,
Yeah.
we can argue about the merits of that, but do you think that he has an image issue with just voters in general, but even conservative voters?
I think to the extent he had that issue, it has cooled off a little bit since 2018. I mean, he began that re-election campaign in 2017, which was just a year after the 2016 presidential race, where he, his image took a real beating, at least among Republicans. I think he was, because of how he handled his support for Trump in the summer of 2016, and just the unrest within the GOP base over the outcome of the presidential election. And so, going into that re-election campaign in 2017, I mean, he didn't have his Republican base, I don't think, entirely shored up. And so I think there was a lot of unrest in his kind of voter coalition going into that re-election campaign. And you see less of that unrest going into, this time around. So, but he has new challenges, to be clear, that he didn't have in 2018. You mentioned the Cancun trip. Democrats will point out this is his first re-election campaign since the role he played in January 6th. They're going to be talking about that. This is, obviously his first re-election campaign since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which Democrats believe is going to be a top issue against Republicans everywhere this election cycle. And so, so that's just to say, I do believe some of those image issues have cooled off, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have some significant headwinds going into this re-elect.
Yeah, he definitely went on image repair. Growing the beard, that was a good move. And yeah, you're right. There was a lot of animosity towards him after the Trump fight. And I think there are two factors that I'm curious in this election cycle, how they're going to play out in Texas. One being, does Texas have some of the same immigration effects that Florida has experienced, where people left blue states, came to red states, and are now maybe voting more Republican? I don't know the answer to that yet. I don't think anybody does. And then the second question is, how much money does the DNC spend in Texas, knowing that they got to kind of defend the swing states? Do they have a lot of extra powder to go hard in Texas? I don't know that they do. And with Trump at the top of the ticket, Cruz didn't have that in 2018. So those are a couple factors I'm thinking about.
Yeah, for national Democrats, I mean, their best pickup opportunities are Florida and Texas, which, illustrates how tough the map is for them if Texas is one of your best pickup opportunities. But that is the case. And so, that probably heightens the speculation around whether they're going to seriously invest in Texas.
So, we talk about this kind of idea turning blue. I'm curious who you see out there who could be the potential kind of, groundbreaking ones to shift it back that way. Out here in the beautiful, luxurious destination location of Houston and Harris County, we have Lena Hidalgo, who obviously Republicans just have a horrible reaction to, but, she was reelected. Generally, the average person likes her. We'll see what happens with this whole investigation going on. She won, like I said, she won re-election. I think there was a poll last year that Mark Jones did where she was the most popular political figure among Houston voters. Second to her was Sylvester Turner, who we know is term limited. Do you think either of those could be potential candidates, or do you think maybe there's someone else out there? I would think they need to be a more like Whitmire-esque type of candidate to be able to win statewide in Texas, and Lena certainly is not that. But I'm just curious, kind of who you see out there as that could maybe be the potential to change things.
That is a great question, and one I get a lot, and I honestly don't have the best answer. I mean, I usually preface it by saying that, Beto O'Rourke was one of the strongest, statewide Democratic candidates we've seen in our lifetimes, or my lifetime. I'm 30 in Texas since statewide office changed over, and not a lot of people saw him coming. And so, I think the person to finally do it may be someone who is not even part of our political, dialogue right now. It's someone who could come out of nowhere and make a decision at the right time, at the right moment, and have the right unrealized strengths, at least strengths unrealized by the broader kind of political class. And so, I'm very curious. I think for Democrats in Texas, there is a lot of focus on the local level, rightfully so. And I think the profile of a, up and coming statewide Democratic star could be a mayor or a county judge who figures out this way to effectively preside over a very Democratic area while also maintaining a productive relationship with the state. I guess that's maybe, and it's also from a new generation. So I understand. I just kind of described John Whitmire, perhaps, but but it would have to be. It'd have to be someone, I think, from a younger generation, and potentially a person of color to be more reflective of the evolving Texas electorate. And so that to me is kind of maybe the profile of a person who could break through. And I don't necessarily have any names to toss out, but that's kind of who I think about as someone who could maybe find a way, to end the drought for Democrats statewide.
So, we talked about sort of Texas on a national level, but on a state level, obviously elections are coming up as well. And we have the special session after special session, and Greg Abbott looks kind of weak on the school choice stuff. We have they're pushing really hard for more border policy, security, whatever you want to call it. And, especially on the school choice part, that seems like something that Democrats could potentially use to maybe take some, I don't know that it'll be successful, but, can they use all these special sessions and sort of frame the border security and the school choice stuff as extreme enough to maybe gain, I don't know, any seats in the Texas legislature?
Are you talking about Democrats campaigning on that issue?
Right. Like, hey, the Republicans, they want to take your money and just give it to some Christian private school, and then, take a border, take some kid that's crossing the border and throw him back on the other side. If you vote for this guy, that's what's going to happen, but vote for me and I'll be compassionate, or whatever they'll say. Do you think that that's going to be a strategy that they'll use, and would it be successful?
I think Democrats, given the polling data I've seen on school choice, school vouchers, whatever you want to call it in particular, it's generally popular across, most partisan demographic groups. And so I don't know if that's the strongest issue for Democrats to run on, but I do think it's maybe more effective. Not that I'm trying to help them strategize here, but, there are all these other public education issues that have become held hostage to school vouchers. And so I would expect the messaging to be more along the lines of, your public schools didn't get a funding increase, your teachers didn't get a pay raise because Texas Republicans were so hell-bent on this school voucher proposal at the behest of their, billionaire donors. That to me sounds like a more likely or resonant message that Democrats may run on. It's just how much the public ed issues suffered at the expense of this pursuit of school vouchers.
Well, Patrick, I know we promised we'd wrap you up at 45 minutes. So unless one of these guys had another question, I was going to just kind of throw two questions out to you. The first one being, well, did any of you guys have anything since I asked? No. Okay.
It's too. You already started.
The first one being, did you listen to the Andre 3000 album, or are you going to? And then the second one being, what are some issues that you're looking at that maybe we haven't touched on, or that just aren't on people's radar that you see coming down the pipeline, whether that's, political moves or other issues that might be popping up that just haven't gotten attention yet, or just kind of anything that's on your radar that may not be top of mind for everyone else?
I haven't listened to the album yet, but I did see he gave an interview where he talked about how he's getting older and maybe running out of things to rap about or to connect with the current audience about. And, I'm getting older too, so I kind of felt that, honestly.
Patrick, stop it.
So, but it's on my list to listen to it. Definitely looking forward to it. In terms of other topics, I think you guys honestly covered it all. I mean, this nonstop special sessions this year and the Paxton trial have really been all consuming. And as a reporter, I'm almost just kind of selfishly eager to see it all wrap up so we can finally have like a firm understanding of what the issue set is going to be for these primaries, because they're now going to be some of the most contentious down ballot primaries I think we've seen in a long time in Texas.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Pat. We appreciate it. This was a great conversation. I really do appreciate you taking the time out to come and chat with us.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Patrick.
thank you so much for having me.
All right. Catch you on Twitter. All right.
Well,
that was good, guys.
That was our first one in the Bucks.
So what do you guys think about some of what he said about the primary? I mean, it is probably going to be one of the most hostile primaries that we see in a long time.
I can't make sense of it. I just look, let's just take my good friend Ellen Troxclair's district as an example. She's got a primary opponent, Kyle Biederman. He's going to be supported by the Paxton crowd.
Wait, is Kyle Biederman is the one that's all about Texas?
Yes,
probably.
Yeah.
But she's for school choice, and Abbott's going to come out and support her. Although he didn't support her in the last primary, he supported Justin Berry, who was against school choice. It's just all so convoluted. I think the competing interests are almost going to cancel themselves out in a lot of ways in some of these districts, in particular that one. But I am really interested to see how they position themselves when there's an anti-choice and an anti-Paxton candidate, and Abbott and Paxton and Defend Texas Liberty are all on the same team. If they are going to actually be vocal that they're coordinating, or if they're going to be like, yeah, we hate those guys, but we're still going after this candidate together. Should be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to make for interesting bedfellows because, you're going to get those candidates, whether they're incumbents or even new candidates who are activists who are outspoken, who are going to kind of have all these different elements that you're now throwing together. I mean, I know we spoke very briefly about House District 133, State Representative Mano Diala, who voted for impeachment. And now he has a school board candidate, but he's also in favor of school choice, if I'm not mistaken. But he's got a school board candidate who's running against him, who's supported by Paxton. And he's kind of school choice now, I guess. It's just very interesting. So yeah, and then you've got Jared Woodfill running for 138 and Speaker of the House. It's just going to be interesting.
Yeah,
I don't think Texas is turn blue.
No,
never
ever. Or
I think we're more likely to secede, than turn blue. I think we'll secede before we turn blue.
This cycle. Yeah.
No, I'm saying how many cycles till we secede?
Well, go support Biederman. And,
at the rate we're going.
I think I had Biederman on my podcast a couple of years ago about Texas, and that's why I know him.
Yeah.
I think that there's no way. Yeah.
I mean, the Democrats at one point said there was no way that Texas is going to go red, and then there's
and then they elected Ann Richards, and look what happened. That's what you get. I could make so many jokes, guys.
I know. I'm scared from the last one. I'm just
I think that's why we have. Go ahead, Charles.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Ann Richards is why we have Robin Hood.
That's her legacy, isn't it? I mean, what else did she do besides have that granny fro?
Take from the rich and give to the poor districts.
Well, her daughter was president of Planned Parenthood for forever. She might still be. I don't know.
No, Ann Richards is never going to get reelected.
Yeah. The other thing with these primaries is how spread thin are the opposition for. Well, I don't want to call them the opposition forces. They're spreading themselves so thin, like Paxton, and we're not talking about unlimited resources here. We're talking about limited resources. If you're going after Dustin Burrows, are you actually going to spend money there to try to defeat Dustin? That's going to suck up a lot of resources. So it'll be interesting to see who they really hone in on, and if they start to prioritize some of these races.
And it'll also be interesting to see if the state party gets involved. I mean, they've been real vocal about things, and so kind of curious to see what role they play, if one at all. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be very ugly.
Hey, can y'all hear it if I do this?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Sure can. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
Is that from the Twilight Zone? What is that?
Oh man, we're not going to be hearing a lot of those. Oh my God, I love it. I'm going to start loading these up.
Do we have a keyboard right there or something? What's going on?
No, I have my whole setup. I have buttons that I can assign sounds to. And so next time you guys act up on the next episode, I'm going to have some sounds for you. I don't think Ken Paxton can fall. I think he's, everyone says that Donald Trump is, Teflon Don, nothing's going to stick to him, whatever. I think Ken Paxton has that magic too. And I don't know why he doesn't seem like real slick. Maybe he does seem greasy. I don't know, but he doesn't seem like slick. Like he's got the, that Trump magnetism, but he had an affair. Who cares? Right. I don't think his wife cares. Maybe she does, but she's like, hugging him and, what's that face for, Michael?
Okay. Keep going. Keep going.
We're tracking.
Maybe in their bedroom, if they even still share.
No, we went to the next topic. You can keep going to the next part of that conversation.
Yeah, no, he certainly has. I think it's part of his strategy to tie himself so closely to Trump is to get some of that Teflon from him. But also, I think people underestimate him. He's a pretty talented politician. I don't know that he's ever lost an election, despite a lot of attempts to beat him. And I really see him. It's governor or Senate is my view. I think he'd run against Abbott, and I think he'd run against Cornyn. Cornyn is very committed to becoming the next minority or majority leader in the Senate. Once Mitch McConnell's gone. Ugh. Yeah, he's one of the 2 or 3 that's in the running for it once McConnell's gone.
All right, so who are the other? It could literally be almost any other name, and I would be fine with it. But who are the other 2?
What's the North Carolina guy's name? Tillis.
Tom Tillis, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Cornyn, that's who I would say. But I'm gonna have to look it up before I say something wrong.
Say something wrong, Michael. Who cares? Say it wrong.
No, that sounds right.
Say AOC.
AOC, and then do a fart noise on your new little.
To Brad's question though about where did he go?
I don't know.
To your question about Paxton, I think the other thing, and this is something I was saying during the impeachment hearings and all that. If you look at the past 8 years, the grassroots has more often than been not, the conservative grassroots has more often than not been mad at Abbott. There have been times where they've been mad at the Senate. The one statewide office where they have not, and Hager is just over there. So it's not he doesn't do anything controversial to upset people. But the one statewide office, the one, Republican elected official that is in the news regularly, who they have not really been mad at because he sues the federal government and, challenges Democratic elected officials in the urban areas and all that stuff, has been Paxton. And so they a lot is just kind of invested in that. And then when this came up, they felt like the one guy who they had not been mad at in a decade is now being attacked by some of the people they have been mad at this past decade. And so I think it might not be the same Trump effect, but it's a different effect that's as effective, I think.
Yeah. John Thune.
Who's John?
Not Tom Tillis.
Oh, John Thune's from South Carolina?
He's South Dakota, the minority whip, or the minority whip. That's what
you said. North Carolina. Charles talking about South Carolina and then Tillis, and he's actually from North Dakota or South Dakota.
Have you guys been to the Dakotas? I haven't. I want to make it out there.
Never been to the Dakotas. No, I am want to believe that they don't exist.
Well,
what's the governor's name of South Dakota?
Kristi Noem.
Kristi Noem. She's cute, right?
Yes, she is cute.
Yeah,
she exists.
As far as
I hear they have good bighorn sheep at hunting. I don't know if that's in the Dakotas or Wyoming, but I think you can go bighorn sheep hunting out there.
That sounds like a Wyoming thing, but who knows? I'm sure they have a range that they go around to, right?
Yeah.
But I was going to say, Ken Paxton, coming out of the impeachment, he seems stronger than ever. He has an affair with his wife. No one seems to care. And I don't think that I think he's got it in the bag, whatever he does. And I'm not saying that's cool, I guess, good or bad. I'm just saying it is.
Yeah. People care that there's a lot of social conservatives that care about that issue, but
I don't think they care. They'll say they care and then they'll get into the voting booth and they'll vote for him in private. They don't care.
I think the impeachment vote had more to do with that than the allegations. He gave people a lot to work with, but I think that the impeachment vote was actually a spillover from the primary, which has to do with his ethical, extramarital affair more than anything.
The one thing I'll say about that office, because everybody was saying during the whole process that he's the greatest attorney general in the country and this and that and the other. But I do have one frustration with that office, and that's when it comes to the Texas Public Information Act and how they never side with the citizens when it comes to getting these local governments to release information. So if I had one change to make, it would be to, actually enforce that.
They've actually sided with me.
They've sided with me a handful of times, but out of the hundreds that I've submitted, 90% of them they have not sided with.
What's your
I have one
public information request?
Huh?
How much money do you spend yearly on public information requests?
Usually not much, because the city stopped charging me. They just unless I'm asking for something massive, then they'll charge me. But they stop charging me. County doesn't really charge me, but they just fight everything and send it to the AG. And so I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting. But then they end up releasing it either on their own accord or they just wait me out. I have one with HPD, Houston Police Department, that I submitted 2 years ago. They said they would release it. I paid for it, never released it. I filed a complaint to the AG's office about a year and a half ago. Nothing happened. So they pretty much stole my money.
I had to cut. Well, that's not good. Come on. What is this? Civil asset forfeiture?
Yes. Which we still have. So.
I've had to do that before, and the AG's office sided with me, but it was still super. I mean, you're getting me started on something that I fucking hate.
This needs to be a topic.
We'll have Paxton on and ask him about it.
Well, yes, we can have Paxton on and talk about it, but just the public information requests in general, Freedom of Information Act, all that crap. It's stupid that we have to ask for it and then pay for it, and they can just they can say, hey, we're going to send this to the AG because we whatever, and then the AG takes 30 days, and then the city takes 30 days, and the AG takes. It's so stupid. Just show me what you're doing in my name.
I submitted one for the cost of the newly built Harris County Commissioner's Courtroom, and they sent it to the AG. And I'm like, what? Like, for what reason? What information is in that? And I just want the line item cost.
Is that Lena Hidalgo's?
Huh?
Is that Lena Hidalgo's?
Yes, but it was through the engineering department. So her office didn't directly send it, but it's through the engineering department.
Well, there's a line item for a padded room.
But that law has been gutted by all these AG exemptions, and not just Paxton, all these years of AG exemptions. It's worthless at this point.
All right, I forgot to do that.
Who are the legislative champions on PIR that we could have on the podcast to talk? Do you know?
I know Betancourt has been talking a lot about it. I've briefly talked to Briscoe Kane about it. He was interested. I believe Senator Middleton was doing some stuff, if I'm not mistaken, or was interested in doing some. But I'm not sure who the champion on it would be.
Okay.
I have no fucking clue. Who do any of them champion this? I mean, maybe they'll champion it cities need to give you more information, but then if they know that the next step is the state and their offices, and I don't think they want to do that. And I mean, it's both sides. I'm not saying it's one side or the other. It's just politics, right?
Yeah. I mean, once you open the door, it's from the local on up, so everybody's worried about it. We just need to build a movement around it. We need to be like the school choice people and start rallying folks and polling. The thing is, it's just not a sexy issue. Like school choice, you can understand how you can get people wrapped up about it. I don't know how you get people very excited about.
I will start a PIR OnlyFans if I have to.
Here's an idea. Let's PIR the email of everybody who has submitted a PIR, and then you have a mail list for your movement.
Interesting.
Oh,
interesting.
Okay. Yeah,
we just gave away our secret. Now the anti-PIR lobby is.
Can they give you isn't that something that's not public information requests? Don't they redact that usually?
I think they redact other information, address and stuff. I don't know that they redact email addresses. I don't know one way or the other, but I do know that the personal information, because I've even requested from city council, so phone numbers and personal addresses and stuff. But in Houston, we have, I don't know if you guys have the portal yet or if you still have to like email them. We have the portal now where you can upload it. And so on the portal, they also have a section where they upload all requests that were requested much after. So it's like 6 months delayed, but they upload them. So you can go see other people's requests and they usually have names associated with them. So it might be hard to, you have a name, you could track them down or something. But yeah, it might be, it's a good idea, Michael.
Great idea, Michael.
That's why they pay me the big bucks.
TML is like, we got to get them.
I'm not paying you shit, Michael.
You guys want to wrap this up?
Yeah.
There's a new iPad glove. The hell is this?
Brad does not.
An old iPad glove.
Brad does not want to wrap it up. He
Oh,
wants to talk about iPad gloves. So that was fun. I think we had some audio issues, which is, did you just make a noise? Oh God. We're gonna be like one of those radio shows from back in the day.
Hell yeah.
Love it. So that was good. There was a little audio mix up there. He was breaking in and out there at the beginning, but I think it was fine. And then our next guest, should we announce it now or should we wait?
Let's wait in the event that something happens. And also, it's next guest, not next show, right?
Yeah, next.
Okay. I mean, you could announce it if you want.
No, don't announce it because it might be, maybe they have a scheduling conflict or it comes up and we have to get someone else or something.
Well, it's huge. I'm personally very excited about this one, and I know other people are too.
Me too.
Charles says that every time that we do a show with me, so that's everything.
Brad, end this for us, Brad.
Well, I want to thank Patrick Svitek. He was, I take umbrage with him saying that he's getting older when he's only 30. So that's not nice. But he was obviously very intelligent and well-spoken, knows all the details. So, big thank you to him. If you don't follow him on Twitter, you should. And while you're at it, you have all of our Twitter handles here in our bios. Charles is over, I can't point, whatever. Charles is up there. Michael's there. Mine's down below. Like and subscribe and follow and do all that stuff. And it's on YouTube, and it's great. We're getting more guests. It's only
Share with your friends if you have them.
Yeah, Michael's not giving us any money for marketing, so share with your friends. That's our marketing ploy. And so do that.